this thing on? Attention Camp Video Games! This is Head Counselor Michael Mayonnaise. Welcome to your first day of camp. Here at Camp Video Games, we'll join junior counselors Josh and Sean as they talk about the Legend of Zelda animated television series from 1989. We also play the show's correlating games and talk about them too. Due to budget cuts, all campers' juice boxes are canceled indefinitely. Until we get a few more campers on the Patreon, there's not enough juice for you kids. But if you mix up a little squirt of the discount mess hall ketchup in your water, it kind of works. Just don't use too much. It's discount ketchup because it's expired, but that doesn't mean it was free. Complaints can be directed to your junior counselors. On that note, attention junior counselors! In lieu of paychecks, this week we've significantly increased your juice box allotment. All right, everyone, let's join junior counselors Josh and Sean as they discuss the first episode of The Legend of Zelda. It's a show based on the first two Nintendo Fantasy Adventure video games of the same name. The show is about a horned-up surfer boy who dresses like Peter Pan in the magical kingdom of Hyrule. Link just wants to get into Princess Zelda's legendary pants. There's an evil piggy boy, too. Oh, I think that went well. Oh, jeez. Oh, okay. All right, guys, I'm gonna go soak my feet for a bit. Is this thing still on?
This is delightful. I'm so glad we came here. Feel those vibrations at Camp Video Games. Hello and welcome to Camp Video Games. I am your junior counselor Sean, and with me is my pal Josh. Why don't you say hi, Josh?
Oh, hey, what's going on? Welcome to Camp Video Games. I hope y'all got plenty of juice boxes in you today.
I got 16 juice boxes on lockdown, and I'm gonna just keep drinking them until I fall asleep.
Yeah, I've been mixing mine with other substances.
He's been mixing his with some ketchup water. So, here at Camp Video Games, we like to talk about video game adaptations for the TV, for this big screen. We like to talk about video games based on movies, movies based on video games. We like to talk about video games, and we like to go camping, and we like to hang out and talk with our pals. So, you're here, that means you're a pal, and you're already an honorary member of Camp Video Games. So, welcome.
Yeah, that's right. I'm proud to welcome everybody here to Camp Video Games. And just a quick riff on my bona fides, why you should listen to me as your junior camp counselor. Everybody shut up and listen to my tales. Here at Camp Video Games, I'm pointing out to my fellow counselor right now, I've got the Super Mario Brothers 2 and Zelda The Adventures of Link Nintendo Power triple feature lunchbox right here behind me on my shelf in the Temple of Time. And behind that, I've got a solid 2/3 of the issues of Nintendo Power released between about 1988 and 1997. So shut up and listen, kids. I know what I'm talking about. And we're here to discuss in this first series of Camp Video Games the Legend of Zelda series that featured on the Super Mario Brothers Super Show alongside The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, we're gonna go through, talk about The Legend of Zelda, which aired in 1989 for 13 episodes, and then side by side we're playing through Breath of the Wild in anticipation for Tears of the Kingdom, which is going to come out in the next month or so. And yeah, it's worth noting all of the similarities and very big differences between Zelda today and Zelda nearly 30 plus years ago.
Yes. And noting that the Zelda of 30 plus years ago that we're talking about, the series, again, that aired with the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, is a very different model of Zelda, I don't know, storytelling than what Shigeru Miyamoto and the gang at Nintendo may have had in line. They actually gave up some control on that, which I don't know if you want to go through the history of that before we dive into the episode.
Yeah,
a little bit.
sure. Well, I guess I should probably give my credentials too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I grew up in the mountainous countryside of Kyoto, and as a young boy, I liked to explore the surrounding wilderness. But one day, I discovered a cave that was hidden, and no one else had ever found it before. And after a few days, I built up the courage and I entered that cave. And inside, I found a VHS bootleg of The Legend of Zelda TV show. And, from there, I got very well acquainted with my pals Link, Zelda, Sprite. And you know what? I even like Ganon. He might be a villain to some. I say he's misunderstood. And he's been maligned his entire life. It's worth noting that no one comes out clean in The Legend of Zelda. Villains all around.
That is a fair point that we'll probably get into with the series. But your history seemed to align quite closely with one I'm quite familiar with of somebody else. You're not cribbing that from anybody. You're not plagiarizing, are you?
No. I am of Japanese descent. I'm just sitting here, cross-legged, having a nice time. Okay. And I don't know what you mean. I mean, is there somebody else that has told a similar story, or?
No, I can't think of it. It couldn't possibly be anybody that's already been mentioned on this program.
Okay.
So yeah, we can move along. I trust your bona fides.
Oh,
100%.
sure. So this TV show was really important to me growing up. As a kid, I had an Atari and I had a Nintendo. I was born in 1986. I would say we're both the prime demographic for this TV show when it was coming out.
100.
And funny enough, I did not own the very first Legend of Zelda game for the Nintendo until years later, but I had Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, and it's a really fun game, especially if you're like just learning how to like play video games in general. It's like kind of like learning. It's a trial by fire. It's a very difficult game, and I feel like it was
the first Souls-like game.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. The amount of like finesse that's needed to just get through the second level is incredible.
Just to find a level in that game.
Yeah, it's very different from the first Zelda, but in some ways it's got a lot of similarities that are overlooked by fans. It seems to be quite looked down on by a lot of people just because of the difficulty level. But if you give it enough time, if you pretend like it's the only video game you owned for a while, and it's the only thing you're going to play, you'll get pretty good at it pretty quickly.
Right.
If anything, it reminds me the most of Castlevania. Is a pretty good
It was an amalgamation of what would become a lot of styles. But I'll give my history with Zelda real quick before we dive into the episode.
For it, bud.
We got a lot of material to get through today. So I received the original gold cart Legend of Zelda for, I want to say like my 5th or 6th birthday. There's a family video we would watch and rewatch of the year my sister was the one who got the NES. I was about 2 or 3 years old. I thought it was hilarious when you would miss in Duck Hunt and the dog would come up and laugh at you.
Yeah.
So I would just be like, just shoot at the screen. I want to see that dog. And then I was the Nintendo freak boy immediately. So I got that cart, and I have with all the, I forget if I said this on this take or the previous one, but like the way memory is subjective and we like to conflate and tell stories, but most of this is accurate in my brain. Is I remember the day I beat The Legend of Zelda, the very first one. We're talking, there's no player's guide. There's no just go to IGN.com and follow the walkthrough.
Right.
That game was, here you are, poke around. I have no idea how many hours it took me to get through that and figure out how the F you get through the final dungeon.
Or even how to find the final dungeon.
How to find
Yeah, because you got a
like,
bomb spectacle
I feel
rock.
like I just bombed and lit up every bush and rock in that game.
Same, for sure.
At 5 or 6 years old, I remember my friend Michael being over and watching me play and beat it. So I was obsessed. And it's like, and my mom always tells the story to this day. She's convinced that The Legend of Zelda is how and the reason I learned how to read.
Yeah.
Because it was like one of the first video games that had more than like press start in terms of text. And like replaying it as an adult, all the clues are in the text of like how to find things and but it's poorly translated and very minimalist, very abstract, but it is there.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just my history with Zelda. And, looking forward to this show releasing on Fridays when the season was like live. I have, again, a memory of that, but I don't know how truthful it is. But the Friday just stuck out in my head. And then when I was researching the show, and they're like, yeah, it came out on Fridays the year it was releasing. So
Cool.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like that's pretty honest.
And I assume you kept up with the series as it progressed. You played most of the mainline titles.
I've played the shit out of everything except some of the handheld titles. Some of those middling handheld titles when Capcom
Game
took
Boy Color
over.
stuff.
Yeah. I need to go back. Oracles of Ages and Seasons and Minish Cap. I think I've missed. Other than that, played the heck out of all of them.
Yeah, same. I've skipped a couple of the handhelds too. I'd never played Phantom Tracks. Or Spirit Tracks or whatever. I don't even remember.
Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks.
Oh,
That's when I got
I
back
mixed them
in.
both.
My mom got me a DS around when I graduated from college.
Nice.
With a copy of the re-release of Chrono Trigger, the best release of Chrono
That was a good
Trigger.
one. I played that on DS. That's
Which
when I
is
first played Chrono Trigger.
That's a much later episode.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that eventually. That's a really important video game.
Yeah.
So just to kind of follow up, I've played all of the main console Zelda titles. I never played the CDI. I don't think anyone in our area code owns a CDI. And after watching some gameplay footage of the Wand of Gamelon, I decided it wasn't worth my time. But yeah, so campers, we're gonna get into it and talk about episode 1 of The Legend of Zelda. It's titled The Ringer. It was written by Bob Forward, who I thought that was a pen name or like something that someone would want to write anonymously, and they would just put it under that name. But no, Bob Forward. He's you check his IMDb, you'll see he's got his hands all over the animation world of the late '80s.
A prolific cartoon boy.
Yeah, he loved them talkies. And yeah, so The Ringer. Before we get too deep into this, it's worth noting that Bob Forward worked on He-Man, the Masters of the Universe, and there's a lot of similarities that I can see between this show and The Legend of Zelda.
There's elements that feel just immediately reskinned onto the show.
And I'm sure we'll hit on some of those, but like right off the bat, like you're going to see a lot of similarities between Ganon and Skeletor in terms of a high-pitched villain who talks like this, and a kind of braggadocio, ineffective hero who is wildly over-exaggerative of his accomplishments.
Yeah. Well, we can get into that. I don't know when to go into the backstory of that, but I've got some notes on that locked and loaded when we get there.
I'm sure, like the vegetables we eat, it'll come up organically. So The Ringer, like most games in the series, this show begins with Link waking up, which is a pretty common storytelling tactic. You just start it with the beginning of their day. Woke up this morning. Got some Triforce. Yeah, and Link, he lives in Hyrule Castle. So we can assume that this has taken place, if we're trying to fit this into the timeline of the games, which I'm not interested in making sense of the Zelda timeline. I know that it's a lot of fun to sift through and try to make a square fit through a peg, a circle peg. You know how it is. But that's just not the focus here. It's really just we're watching this,
Yeah.
and we know that at the time the show came out, we had the first 2 Zelda games, and the first one ends with Link rescuing Zelda and defeating Ganon, and the second one begins, Ganon's dead, and Zelda's in a coma.
Yeah, for some reason.
For
that
some
I don't
reason.
remember.
So it's hard to say if this is taking place after part 2, where Ganon is already brought back to life as well, or if we shouldn't worry about it. I think that's kind of the way we're going to go. Is just we're not going to worry about it.
I'm trying to look up if you are that type of person.
Ooh, if you have something to say about the Zelda timeline, why don't you write to us at campvideogames@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and let us know, your take on the Zelda canonical progression.
No, I was trying to find if you are that kind of person who likes like lore theories. I'm first off, I want to set up. I'm not that guy. I'm partially stalling and partially want to explain.
Well, I'll just say I'm the opposite. I love lore, and I love the process of making sense of nonsense, because that's what a lot of lore is, where you're just trying to fill in the blanks. You're trying to create purple with a little bit of blue, a little bit of red, trying to make it the right shade, and sometimes it doesn't come out, and that's okay.
Yeah. So this is interesting because I am the opposite. I am a lifelong media obsessive and critic, and took a lot of courses in college on script analysis. And the main takeaway there is, like, if it ain't in the script, it didn't happen. If it is in the script, it has to happen. Which in like online, like modern lore theory means, on one hand, that stuff kind of drives me crazy. I hate when people present it as like, this is the actual connections and blah 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 that I figured out based on my own speculation. I was trying to find, there is a YouTube channel I've been having fun with recently, and I can't find the name of it, so I'll either comp it in later or put it in the show notes. That they do, there's this series of Zelda lore that they call Heavy Speculation.
Okay.
And it is kind of fun. I like it just because it's soothing. Like, more than anything, it's the way this woman talks and speculates. But that's just, I just wanted to set that up. That's not the way I'm gonna approach the show very often.
Well, if
the games.
If we're gonna pick straws here, we could say, let's just go ahead and say this takes place between 1 and 2, because
But I would agree with that if I was gun to my head.
they have the Triforce. You have to gather the 8 pieces of the Triforce of Wisdom in the first Legend of Zelda, and now that they have it, they're sitting pretty. And Ganon, is kind of defeated, but he's not. You know what? It doesn't have to make sense.
Right.
It's a cartoon for kids, and we are those kids. We've grown up.
Well, and this is where the grown-up who, while I am still a junior camp counselor, I have spent time working in media and journalism, and that part of me does have to fill in the blanks that Bob Forward and Company, which I learned from I think, was it Polygon?
Yeah, they did a great article.
History?
January 2023, they released a really great retrospective of the Zelda TV series.
They did a great oral history of the series, and he explained that no one involved really in making and writing the show had played Zelda. They were given a show Bible of like, this is what the world of Zelda is, and beyond that, they were like, have fun with it, which is really interesting because that is not how Nintendo controls their intellectual property.
One might even say Nintendo learned their lesson after this.
Yeah. So that is to say that we could sort of put it in that place in the timeline of Zelda, which there is a canonical Zelda timeline up through, I think, Skyward Sword, which released with the encyclopedia around 2011, 2012.
The Hyrule Historia.
Yeah. And so we could kind of tuck the show in. The show's not included in that. But they were working from limited options with Nintendo off their back, which again is just
it's mind-boggling that
Not
they
how
had the
they do
freedom
it.
to do that.
I don't know if it was this series or the first Super Mario Brothers movie that made Nintendo go, we've got to hold lock and key on how our intellectual property is handled in the West, because they don't understand it.
Yeah, it's like how the Dr. Seuss estate, after they saw the Jim Carrey, it was either the Grinch. Jim Carrey was the Grinch, or Mike Myers was the Cat in the Hat. I think it was the Grinch. Wait, did he do the Grinch, Dr. Seuss? Yeah.
Jim Carrey was the Grinch.
But that's a Dr. Seuss, right?
Yes.
After that movie came out, the Dr. Seuss estate was like, we're never gonna do a live action Dr. Seuss like again, because it just doesn't translate right. And studios learn their lessons.
And as we record this, that new animated Mario Brothers movie is about to come out, and I think that looks like they've squared the circle now of how to present to a worldwide audience like the intellectual property of Nintendo, and generationally.
Yeah.
My nephews are hooked on all things Mario. It's a huge intellectual property at this point. And watching the trailers, I'm like, they're going to love this. And, like, if I, happen to go with them, I'd probably have a good time, too,
I'd say you're going to be contractually obligated to watch it in a couple of months,
Yes.
Let's get into episode 1, The Ringer. So,
we'll probably do less setup in the future episodes.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
For the beginning of the series, I feel like that was important. Yeah, take it away.
Yeah, so Link wakes up in Hyrule Castle. He's got his own bedroom. He's got his own jams. No pants.
Nope.
But he's got a long T-shirt. I had a long T-shirt that I would wear a lot as a kid. It had Intel processing on it. It was one of my dad's shirts, but I would wear. I don't understand how computers work. I didn't inherit that, but I thought Intel was just the best. And it was a long T-shirt that came down to my knees. And I would just wear that. But I would wear, I had some really good Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles tidy whities, or tidy greenies, I guess. But Link doesn't seem to, he seems to go full kilt in this.
Yeah, it's not even full kilt. I would love to add to that Polygon oral history, what was the costume design choice for Link outside of his classic Kokiri tunic?
Yeah.
Because that pajama choice it's something.
It's startling. And I went through the trouble of watching the opening scene, which we're about to get into, where I watched it at quarter speed so that I could pinpoint the one frame, because they're from minute 1 they are just tempting the viewer with upskirt shots of Link. Mm-hmm. And they set it up so many times, and that's all intentional. It takes a lot of work to animate a cartoon, multiple frames per second. It's all done by adults who know what they're doing. They went to school for this. They worked really hard, and they kept pushing these upskirt shots of Link, which is interesting. As in the Zelda universe, Link wears the skirts and Zelda wears the pants.
That is good. Yeah, that is a good observation. And I'll also note that this is an overlap of the era of fan service into anime, but this was like an entirely, I believe, Western production. Deke, the animation studio and publishing studio that controlled this show, I was trying to figure out a little bit of their background, because in my head I'm like mixing them up a little bit with I'm gonna get the pronunciation of his name wrong. Haim Saban.
Yeah. I know him from Power Rangers.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of stuff. Israeli man.
Yeah. So that's quite literally a in-between sort of the culture's production studio. But Deke, I don't know. Anyway, and I bring that up just to say, horniness was on the rise in animators in anime at the time. And I mean, I haven't revisited American Western cartoons much because that just doesn't really interest me. I don't think there's like a lot of artistic value to like most of it. Most of it was just disposable. We got to sell these toys.
Yeah, sure. Unless it's a video game adaptation, then that's just pure gold.
Then that's really important, and you should listen to a podcast about it on the regular.
Yeah, it's recommended for sure. But the upskirt, the horniness, the general like lasciviousness of Link is telling of the time. I wouldn't say times were different. I would just say things were more tolerated back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, Link, he wakes up in Hyrule Castle. He's got a room. He seems to be kind of bummed that he's not homeless anymore. He's like, oh, I'm sleeping in a bed like an idiot.
Yeah. Which that speaks. I think that's one of the few things that does kind of speak to the character. He's a boy of the wilds. He enjoys the breath of the wild.
Yeah. He's got morning breath of the wild.
Yeah. I mean, the most settled into a home, I think we see him in a game. Is Twilight Princess.
Yeah, he's like a teen bachelor, like living like in his own little bachelor pad.
But it's very provincial.
Ordon Village, right?
I forget the name of it, but it is a very provincial like in the wilds like lifestyle, as well as like Ocarina of Time. So like that's in character.
Yeah, and he's sleeping in a bed. He wakes up. That's how most of the games start. Usually Zelda is like psychically waking him up, or he's waking up from a bad dream, or something is calling him out of bed. He's got to wake up, start his day. In this case, he just wakes up and he's like, ugh, I gotta live in a house with people, but at least there's a babe.
With comfort.
Yeah, and he shares his room with the Triforce of Wisdom, which in the games is portrayed as like a golden relic of the goddesses. It's just a golden triangle. In this one, it's magical blue. You know how magic is blue and shiny, which is interesting thing about Breath of the Wild. Like all of the Sheikah technology is blue.
Oh yeah, we can get deep into that.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that later.
I've got thoughts.
I've got several pages of notes on everything we're talking about, but it's weird. The Triforce of Wisdom, right? You know, in the games, it's just an artifact. It's the Holy Grail of sorts. It's a piece of the puzzle at least. And in the show, it's a character. They gave the artifact some lines.
Yeah. And also worth noting that there are only 2 pieces of Triforce.
Yes.
In the show, which again to speak to, they were just given a show Bible or a game Bible basically to write from. I should have done better research to figure out how much in the lore of Zelda 1 and 2 the idea of the Triforce was written, because my memory is that in the first Zelda it's like understood that like the 2 pieces of Triforce, and I forget if they name them power, courage, wisdom. There's 2 intact, and you're putting together one that broke.
Yeah. You're gathering Zelda's Triforce of Wisdom, because in the game's lore, Link, Zelda, and Ganon are the 3 facets of Link being courage, Zelda being wisdom, Ganon being power. Ganon already has possession of the Triforce of Power. That's his source of power. Zelda has the Triforce of Wisdom, and I think we'll find out as the show goes along that Link has the Triforce of Courage in him all along.
Yeah.
It's not about... It's about the Triforce of Courage that you made along the way.
Yeah.
But it's just weird that, like, so Link, he's guarding the Triforce in this show. He shares a bedroom with it, and the Triforce of Wisdom, it's kind of like... it's sentient, so it's just like sharing his room all the time, and it sees him, I assume, and it seems to be able to interact with him, but it doesn't just speak up. It seems to only speak when spoken to, which is an interesting dynamic, because it's just this like
something blessed upon him by the goddesses.
Yes. Let's see. If we're gonna the corresponding goddesses, we've got Din. She's the goddess of power, which is personified through fire. That's Ganon.
Yeah.
Nehru, she's the goddess of wisdom and water. That's what Zelda's got. And then Link, he's got it. And in Ocarina of Time, we see it finally where the Triforce appears on his hand. Because I think a lot of people are like, it's Triforce. Where's the third Triforce? And it was in Link's hand. And that's Furore, which is personified through wind. And that's Link. But yeah, for now it's just the Triforce of Wisdom. She kind of just talks.
And what color is it in the show? I don't recall.
She's blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe the Triforce of Power that Ganon has is red, which is actually startlingly makes sense.
Happy accident is what I'll call that.
Yeah. So yeah, Link, he's disappointed that he's no longer homeless, or at least drifting or adventuring. But then he's got this framed photo of Zelda on his wall, and I actually might frame this same portrait and just put that up in my room. But he's definitely got the hots for Princess Zelda. He doesn't mind telling her, and he talks to himself a lot, but that's pretty normal in cartoons when a cartoon character is just waking up. I know when I wake up, I get out of bed, I'm naked except for a t-shirt. And I'm like, another beautiful day for me, Sean, camp counselor, junior camp counselor at Camp Video Games.
Yeah.
If only I was still a homeless guy drinking beer in the alley. Man, I miss those days. So Link is immediately relatable, but he looks out his window, and who's he see?
Oh, I know who he sees.
He sees...
He sees his favorite little lady. Let's see if... I think it looks a little something like this.
Looking good, princess. Especially from this angle. Oh!
Yeah, when... folks, let's talk about something right off the bat. Link is not a model of excellence. He is I think the word problematic is often associated with this show, and that's rightfully so.
Probably mostly by us, the only people talking about this show in 2023, other than
besides
Polygon.
But Link is not shy in expressing his physical attraction to Zelda, and it's good to be forthright and to be honest about your feelings, but there are boundaries. And I'd really we should probably get like a couples therapist on at some point to talk about, do an assessment of the dynamic between Link and Zelda. Even though they're not a couple, they seem to just be in that like constant flirtatious mode, because Zelda does play back a bit,
Yeah.
But Link, he just wants a kiss. Just a kiss.
Yeah, which we can, speak to a little bit. I'll reference the Polygon oral history one more time here. That I think writer Bob Forward, he didn't have a lot of dynamic of the relationship between these two, because even if he had played the game,
there's nothing.
You just see a sprite of Zelda for about 30 seconds at the end of the game.
After you've spent hours to beat the game.
Alone.
Yeah.
Just a dude being a dude in the wilds.
Right.
And so what they did is they took a modern television series called Moonlighting. Which,
yes.
If I was if I was a senior camp counselor, I probably would have watched that for research. But I'm just working with their explanation. Is that the characters were played by Sybil Shepherd, and was it Bruce Willis?
Yes.
And that was their dynamic. Was this sexual tension of there's this woman who the guy wants to treat as a damsel in distress and is trying to like constantly win her affection in a very sort of overbearing way, but she can handle her own. And that's the way you sort of like are able to counteract that in the narrative without it being too off-putting.
Yeah.
And this show maybe leans into it a little too hard because you have to overplay things for children. But then as an adult reviewing it back, you're like, uh-oh. And the era as well.
They really should have gotten Bruce Willis to voice Link in this.
Oh, hell yeah.
That would have been a good move. Come out to Hyrule, have a few laughs. So Zelda, she's the recipient of some I don't know. It's not even verbal abuse. Link cat calls her.
Straight up.
He straight up cat calls her. Does he whistle? He goes whip whip.
No.
But and then Sprite, she's the fairy character. She immediately blames Zelda for the way she's dressed. That's why Link acted the way he did. And she covers her up, puts a grandma robe on her, and it seems like Link simultaneously loves and hates Zelda. He's desperate for her physical affection, but he's also so critical of her as a monarch. He would if this was Game of Thrones and Link talked to the princess that way, they would have slit his tongue in half.
Yeah.
Like they would have just chopped his head off.
Yeah. Oh, you mean talk to her like this?
Excuse me, princess.
You know, it's funny though. He does bow when he says that though. He does, he gives her a little curtsy. Excuse me, milady, and he tips his fedora.
Yeah. He's got powerful fedora energy throughout the entire series.
So then, after Link, starts the day with a bit of misogyny, he gets attacked by moblins, which are little pig boys.
Yeah.
And the moblins, they're agents of Ganon, who's a big pig boy, and they're trying to steal the Triforce of Wisdom for Ganon, and it gets through. This cartoon is like many cartoons of the time. Our hero has a sword, and he never uses it like a sword. Think Ninja Turtles. You never see Leonardo like slice people in half or anything. He's always using it to like cut ropes or to deflect, to deflect attacks, but he's never like stabbing people or slicing them unless they're robots maybe.
Yeah,
but
which I'll say I don't remember if they discussed this in the Polygon thing that I've been referencing, but I do have a lot of history and experience with Nintendo's control over how like death is handled.
Sure.
and historically that and my earliest experiences with like deep narrative gaming being like Squaresoft's translations of Super Nintendo games for the West.
FF6, Chrono Trigger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you will not find in those early translations people talking about like killing, murder, blah blah blah, blah when
he's been sent to the underworld.
Yeah, that's like that kind of language, and some of that is in the translation, but a lot of it is Nintendo still was like, if you're publishing on our platform, there is a certain sort of a way or a set of weird morality values that we pretend on or whatever.
Yeah, they had a lot of censorship of religious iconography, violence. Mentions of death, just things. You can't have drug use, no tobacco, alcohol. It's very, prim and proper in a way.
Yeah, that might be like one of the few controls they still held over this show.
And well, it's interesting because Ganon, who we'll get to in a second, his minions, they don't die; they just get zapped back to his lair. Which is interesting. But so Link, he's fighting these moblins. They're trying to steal the Triforce. He, all it takes is a pillow fight to kill a moblin. Apparently, you got a pillow fight and you got a laser blast in the sword.
Got a couple laser blasts in there.
And it's suggested that Link sleeps with his sword under his pillow. Because there's a shot where he's like grabs the pillow and the sword just comes right along with it. So
like a real man.
Yeah.
I sleep with a gun under my pillow.
I sleep with a gun pointed at my head. Okay. So the moblins, they get defeated via pillow fight, laser blasts, and one of them leaves behind a magic bow, which is it's made out of bones, which is great. It seems like Breath of the Wild. They picked up on that aesthetic. You can get some cool wooden and some cool bone weapons from your defeated enemies. Link takes the magic bow and he stashes it in his magical fanny pack. He's got and it's like it seems to work like the tents do in Harry Potter, where it looks like one size, but it's like got infinite space on the inside. Or if you're a bigger nerd, it's like the TARDIS from Doctor Who.
Yeah, like I don't know how hard they thought about that, but it is a good way to quickly, narratively, visually solve for the encumberment problem.
Yes, because in all of the video games, Link carries enough stuff to like fill the back of a pickup truck.
Yeah.
And the fact that it magic, the Deus Ex Machina of storytelling, it just solves all your problems. So after Link defeats the Moblins, Zelda comes knocking at his door, and he immediately assumes that since he's fought off the Moblins from stealing the Triforce, that he has earned a kiss, because affection is a currency. And
much like rupees.
Much like rupees. Yeah, sex work is work. But that's not the game Zelda's playing. She seems to understand the dynamic, and she'll even play along every once in a while, but Link is an entitled, grossly like maladjusted teenager at this point, who is doing things only with the expectation of physical reward, which is not a healthy relationship tactic. He seems to only really stick around because he's trying to get that kiss. And what happens when he gets that kiss? Is he like, oh, old news?
He's just I'm good. I'm gonna go back to the wilds now.
I'm gonna go to the Mushroom Kingdom. There's another hot princess. She might bake me a cake or something. Zelda, she sees his room, which is left in disarray after his pillow fight, and Link he exaggerates how many Moblins he defeated. It's funny that this show is based loosely on a show called Moonlighters. Moonlighting, yeah. Moonlighting, because he's kind of gaslighting Zelda. No, there's like 15 Moblins, babe. Yeah. Babe, come on.
Yeah, it's like you're in so much more danger than you really are.
You don't understand.
You really need me.
I'm really important, babe. So he's on Triforce guard duty. It seems like his glory days are behind him as an adventurer, as a drifter, as a vagabond, as a homeless guy, which, I've never been homeless, but I have lived in a tent. And those were good days. I'll say that.
Well, yeah, that's what I was getting at, is that is something that is of the nature of the character of Link. He is... maybe this is why I am so drawn back to Zelda and the world of Zelda at this point in my life. Is like he is this like creature of solitude who operates well as just a man alone against the wilds.
The appeal to me as a young person watching The Legend of Zelda, and this was echoed really, really effectively by the Pokemon series, is younger preteens, because I think in the game Link is a teenager at best, but it's these kids. They got independence. They got no damn parents telling them what to do. Mm-hmm. They get to live on their own. And think about Ash Ketchum. He's a 10-year-old, 11-year-old boy. He gets to just set off on his own, wander the countryside, catch them Pokemon. As a kid coming from a broken family,
it's like the dream narrative for a child.
It's so liberating.
The original Pokemon Red and Blue.
Yes, where you just kids. No, go ahead, kid. Go drift.
And maybe I'm going too emotionally deep on the
go
Zelda
for it, baby.
series, but maybe that's what appealed to me so much so early on in it. Is I was the youngest with older sisters and their friends. Who they'd beat up on me a little bit.
Josh, I feel you, baby. I had an older sister too.
And I was just constantly ridiculed in Catholic grade school that this escape where it's like me in solitude as this avatar who is powerful against the wilds is so empowering as a kid, and like people, I'm saying the same thing anybody will say about like why is fantasy and sci-fi good,
Yeah.
But in this like pre-internet age, the like abstraction of those worlds of like the original Zelda game, you fill in so many blanks in your imagination, and that it's so much bigger than what's quote unquote on the page.
I think a lot of video gamers will feel a relation to this, where you turn on a video game and they have given you a whole new world to explore. A game like The Legend of Zelda, which was, if I'm not mistaken, it was the first video game to have a save function. Battery backup save on the NES cartridge. And that was, for me as a kid playing Zelda 2 specifically, I can speak more authentically from that. I was a kid. I was getting beat up by my big sister too, and I turn on this game, and all of a sudden I'm the hero. I'm the main character. There's no parents telling me what to do.
Yeah. Gosh dang parents.
You've got full agency.
They just don't understand.
The parents, they just don't understand. And I think empowering is the main focus of what video games offer for kids. You are the decision maker, and aside from a tutorial stage, no one's telling you what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that, as much as I want kids still to read, that's a different element that you don't get from books.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Although, we'll get into this a lot more probably with our discussion of Breath of the Wild, but the most important part of Link specifically as a hero from the video games is that he doesn't say a word.
Yes.
Oh boy, does he say a lot in this show.
Okay, yeah, let's move down the pipeline of some words.
Yeah,
say.
he's
I'm distracting too much, waxing him nostalgic here.
He's quite loquacious. He's got a lot to say, and I recently read a fantastic book called The Psychology of Zelda. It's a collection of essays that go into detail about the different interpretations through reading Carl Jung, Freud, Joseph Campbell, who was an acolyte of Jung. And the main appeal of Link is that he's a blank slate, and you can project yourself onto him. With Link in the TV show, he is that guy. He's not some blank archetype. He is that guy who can't stop talking about that hot chick he saw on the way here, dude. Did you see what she was wearing, bro?
He's projecting a very specific form of in the zeitgeist of the moment, American masculinity.
Yes. He's just he's a little fixated on one specific thing, and that is a kiss. And us boys, we love them kisses.
We love them kisses.
So Zelda tells Link that he can't go outside and play today. Even though it's a beautiful day, and even later in the episode, Ganon's like, "It's a beautiful day," and again, Ganon, it's not so bad. He's just the other side of the card, really.
He's just a mischievous little fella.
He just wants the forbidden knowledge. He's he's like Prometheus, really. Like the search for knowledge, the search for the fire of the gods.
Yeah.
But speaking of Ganon, Zelda, she says she's got to go and judge a amateur magicians contest, which you know how that is.
Every day in Hyrule, it's just another goddamn amateur magicians contest that the princess has to judge.
And when Link finds out that he's got to stay inside and guard the Triforce, he just screams in rage, which is kind of off character for him at that point. Like, he seems like a happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and then when he finds out he can't go out and play, he's like, yeah! And then it cuts to show that Ganon's doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Except he's in his it's not a man cave. I guess it's like his pig cave.
Yeah, which you noted during the commentary. I want to make sure we pick up here is literally crossfades the exact same shot of the two characters.
Yeah, if you'd like to listen to our commentaries, please go ahead and subscribe to our Patreon. It's for $5 a month. You can hear all sorts of commentary, playthroughs, and more. Love you guys. Ganon, he's in his cave. He's caving. And the moblins that Link defeated, they're floating in a 30-foot tall smoky glass orb perched atop some monster legs, and there's a face.
It's a dope design.
Spikes, and there's a bat on top of it. it's just all the cool villain.
Yeah, on my
iconography.
mind, because I played as much Elden Ring as I could stand. To contrast against my return to Breath of the Wild. It's a somewhat From Softwareian design. This is a little weird and monstrous for the world of Zelda.
Well, just imagine if there was a Zelda TV series that was produced by like Todd McFarlane.
yeah. That's probably a more
That'd be pretty dope. Like everything's got spikes and like,
but it's just this one object.
Yeah, it's just this one thing. So yeah, Ganon, he's teleporting around his cave, kind of like having a hissy fit. He's like blink, blink, blink. Yeah, and his magic is like bluish greenish, and he seems to be really mad at his moblins because they couldn't defeat Link and steal the Triforce, and he zaps them with some electricity, which seems to like, the rationale of this glass orb is it seems to be they don't die when Link zaps them. They get transported back to this glass orb, which seems like when they're floating around in that, like they're like waiting to be resurrected or like teleported out of it. But Ganon zaps them and they just kind of disappear into smoke. But it seems like he's got a full jar, a full big glass orb.
Full jar of piggy boys.
And he can blast them and then turn them into something else, like the Stalfos that he summons when he disguises himself as an amateur magician, as one does, which seems to he just puts a robe on, puts his hood up, at this point the Triforce of Power talks to him, and it's like, "You're no amateur magician. Like Disco Stew's got to party." The Stalfos, they put on their hoods. They put Ganon on a palanquin, and he transports them into the forests outside of Hyrule Castle. Because apparently he cannot teleport into Hyrule Castle. He says at some point, like, my teleportation powers are limited, and
well, that's a good catch, because I was just having the thought of like, easy way to win an amateur magician contest, just like teleport right to the front of the line, be like, "What's up?
Yeah,
can anybody else here do this? I win."
Well, we find out as then we go to Hyrule Castle's courtyard. And magicians, they're lined up to display their magical prowess to Zelda. The first spell we see is like Engorgio of a tomato.
Yeah.
That would, like, if that spell was put to proper use, that would just solve world hunger. Like,
yeah, but the way they handle it's just has a very horny overtone, like much of the show.
Yeah. For the listeners at home, if you want to look away from the screen when the magician does his tomato spell, and just listen to the way it goes. He's like, "Ooh, I can make it bigger," and Zelda's like, "Oh my God, bloop! Oh no!"
But to their credit, very, very diverse lineup of magicians in Hyrule.
Oh yeah,
it's very interesting. Well, I mean, they all have this like Merlin-ass looking design to them, which is like, this isn't Zelda for me as a viewer. But hey, they look like, hey, these magicians come from all over the land.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny, they kind of sound like head camp counselor Mayonnaise.
Like, "Oh, this is my favorite smell. It makes my socks smell better."
Don't talk too badly about him. We'll get demoted.
He's not listening. He's in the bathroom right now. Yeah, so the tomato gets big. Save that for later, though, because that's going to be an important part of the action. And it blows up in Zelda's face. She gets covered in tomato juice. And again, if you want to just like compare this to like the actual monarchy, like that wizard would be executed immediately for that kind of thing. But Zelda seems to run a pretty chill ship. I don't think there's state-sanctioned murder in Hyrule.
Yeah, no, she's like, hey, this is all in good fun. Sometimes you get tomato creamed as the monarch.
I'm just going to go on the record and say Camp Video Games is against the death penalty.
Against the death penalty, against the monarchy. Yeah, let's get that on record.
Yeah, yeah. All princesses are bad. APAB. So okay, Ganon, he announces himself. He's got a pretty grand entrance. He's like getting walked in by like servants. He's like, "Is this the magician competition?" And Zelda tells him to wait his turn after he displays that he's a magician by summoning a bird in his hand. And Zelda, she's like, "Yeah, who hasn't seen that before?"
Yeah.
And then
Real Joe Bluth hours that he's pulling there.
And after Zelda loses interest and tells him to go wait his turn, he turns the bird into a bat. Or it might be a keese.
Yeah.
At that point, I don't know if they had established that as a enemy name. I know I remember learning keese from Ocarina of Time, because that was when Navi, the fairy, would tell you the name of the enemies when you press C up, which was pretty dope. And yeah, like he sends that bat to go run recon on the Triforce and see if it's ripe for the taking. We then kind of follow the Keese up to Link's bedroom. He's talking with Sprite. He's like, "How do I get Zelda to like me?" And Sprite, she's putting her fellow woman down. She's like, "Oh, forget Zelda. Like you want a piece of this little fairy."
Too weird. I'm sorry. The tiny fairy also being in on the weird love triangle, infusing sexuality into a children's show. Too weird for me. That's when I'm like, okay, this is bizarre.
There's a interesting parallel too with and this is a very much a Peter Pan thing, where Tinkerbell was in love with Peter.
Yeah.
And she was like, she resented Wendy, the little girl that was taken with her brother.
That would be the one.
And I'm thinking from the Robin Williams film Hook, which is, Peter Pan as an adult going back to Neverland. Julia Roberts played Tinkerbell in that. And same vibes, where Julia Roberts is like, "If I was tall, would you love me?" And then she gets tall in the movie Hook, and Peter kind of like, she kisses him and he doesn't kiss her back. And it's just this weird thing where it's like, what's the physics of like, how do you consummate that?
Yeah.
Enough said on that.
Don't want to think any more about that.
Yeah. She puts Sprite, she like puts Zelda down. She's like, "Yeah, forget Zelda. You don't like short girls?" She sounds kind of like Harley Quinn or something. Like,
Yeah.
Mr. J.
I do want to just quickly verify in the original manual for the original Legend of Zelda.
Preach.
Keese is the name of the bat.
All right, sick.
Vyre is the name of the bigger one. Vyre is a devil that controls the Keeses. When Link cuts it with his sword, it turns into two Keeses. Keeses have little attacking power, but Vyre's a little stronger.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Junior Counselor. Moving along, we then go back to the Hyrule Castle courtyard. Another amateur wizard conjures a small lizard into Zelda's hand. basically just doing the same spell that Ganon did, except instead of a bird, it's a lizard. So kind of old hat already.
Yeah.
But conjuration, like that's a cool magic subset.
That is a strong school of magic.
Yeah,
D&D. Why not? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And on that, this amateur wizard, he conjures the lizard, and then Ganon uses an alteration spell, and he turns the lizard into a dragon. And this is a big, fire-breathing St. Peter dragon, like.
Or, if I may, still referring to the original instruction manual of The Legend of Zelda, a Aquamentus, a type of dragon that some call a unicorn, as well as having lots of attacking power. It's a fearful opponent. Period. It emits beams. Period. That's an entire sentence.
Nice.
It emits beams.
Now,
just deal with them.
I remember there's a 3-headed dragon in The Legend of Zelda as well.
Yeah.
Is that...
We will see that later in the animated series.
Yes.
And later in a dungeon in the original Zelda.
We'll probably say it's in episode 10 of The Legend of Zelda.
That's neither here nor there.
Not that I remember. So this dragon, it's doing some dragon. It's dragoning around. It's breathing fire. It's roaring. It's being tall. That bothers people. Dragons are maligned. And it's at this point where Link he hears Zelda scream in terror, and by God, he does not understand that this is an attempt to get him away from the Triforce, because he jumps out that window.
Oopsie. Self-defenestration, never a strong move when you have to defend a Triforce.
He had one job, and he gave it up for love, or at least a kiss.
Yeah, little kisses.
And Link jumped out the window. He cuts a rope with his sword, and he swings into action. If this was made in a different time, he would just be stabbing that dragon in the neck or the head. But instead, he materializes the shield, and he's deflecting that fire.
Yeah,
and
which I don't know if this is the first appearance of the shield, but it does have the very Crusader era cross on it. Which I used to know the lore of why they did this design in Zelda, but that is from, again, the original game had the cross on it. I don't think we see the Hylian shield design, which has now become canon throughout.
Yeah,
the series
like the blue
until
and yellow. I think that's in Link to the Past.
Link to the Past, yeah, and then it really gets defined as this is the Hylian shield in Ocarina time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Link, he's bearing the cross.
Soldier of Christ, baby.
He's a soldier of Christ. He's there to defeat the heathens, spread the good word.
Yeah.
So he's blocking the fire. He's like, I can't get a shot off. And so Zelda, she alley-oops him. She alley-oops him a silver dish. She throws the dish, and so Link can shoot his laser blasts off the dish, and then it ricochets into the dragon. And so he's able to laser blast that dragon, and it shrinks back. I don't remember if they showed the lizard walking off after that, or if he just
don't
killed a
recall
lizard. When there's some warning signs for young people to when they showed problematic behavior that could later register as the early warning signs of a serial killer or sociopathic tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
Animal abuse is top on the list there. So let's just keep an eye on Link maybe. So dragon defeated. Zelda, what does she do? Does she shower praise on Link? No, dog. She chides him. Why do you not? You're not protected the Triforce, dude.
Yeah.
You were the only person I assigned to protect the Triforce. Even though I'm in charge of a kingdom, I've assumably got an army. I've got soldiers. I've got knights. No, just Link. Just this one dude. Yeah, so Sprite, she's back with the Triforce, and she realizes that Ganon's coming for the Triforce, and so they hear the cry of Sprite, which I mean she's like the size of a cup of coffee maybe,
If that.
and she's got the vocal cords that they can hear her screaming from up in the tower, and yeah, you know, Ganon, after he ascends the tower, that's when he's like takes his hood off. He's like, yeah, it's Ganon. He could have just kept it on, but you know, we got to be sure who's doing the bad stuff here.
That's a prime thing. As a villain wants to be known for their exploits at a certain degree.
It's true. It's true. It's why so many killers return to the scene of the crime.
Right.
But Ganon, he just flicks Sprite out of the way, like she's like, you know, a booger. Yeah, then the Triforce, she like spits some mad rhymes at Ganon. She's like, bad dudes are no good, or something, you know, don't be coming around my neighborhood. And yeah, Ganon steals the Triforce of Wisdom and jumps out the window. Like this Link's window is like they should just put like
It
a
needs to
launching
slide,
pad.
yeah.
Yeah, like because like everyone's jumping out of Link's window.
They need to reckon with the amount of jumping from that window that's
Yeah.
happening and put in some sort of ADA compliance.
Or at least like what is it when you like
A rope ladder?
well, when you like slide on a rope, like with the handles and the turbine thingy. Oh man.
Sure. That's yeah. I'm thinking of like how you escape from a plane. Is that
No, a rope. It's like there's a rope going from one thing to the next thing, and then
a zip line?
zip line.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Link needs a zip line, dog. So yeah, Zelda and Link, they're like, oh my god, Ganon's got the Triforce. Like we had one job, and so Zelda, she goes to that amateur magician who's doing the tomato spell. She puts a seed in the crack in the ground, and the magician casts the spell, and it's like Jack and the Beanstalk. This big root just shoots out of the ground. She ties a rope to the top of it and ties it to a secure point, so that she's basically creating a catapult to ride. And her and Link, they hold on to this thing. Link chops the rope, and they get catapulted over the castle walls, and then they fall through some trees, and then Link lands, and then Zelda lands on him, and then he's like, hey, I saved your life again, babe. Like,
well, that is like one thing worth noting real quick is the dynamic of the Zelda character, which we've been talking about, how like she's not a damsel in distress.
no, not at all.
And
Probably the most progressive part of this show.
yeah, she does play the role in the series of wisdom, obviously. And it's usually in the form of guidance. And in this show, they do give her a more active role. And it was probably more out of a fact of like, it's a cartoon show. We've got to make it visually exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like kind of works.
It works. She makes a decision that you would think Link would be making, like
Yeah,
the brash,
exactly.
like, you know, like not thinking about the aftermath, just like I got to do this thing.
Yeah. Because and like so much of the dynamic of every Zelda game is solving puzzles within the things you discover through new inventory.
Yeah, for sure.
And she takes on some of that role.
It's great because if we're going to talk a little bit about maybe Tears of the Kingdom and the hype leading up to that game's release, so many people want Zelda to be a playable character, and in this show, she's being treated as a playable character.
Yes.
Right? Like, you know, you got player 1, player 2, and they both have the same amount of like agency and power.
Resources.
Yeah. Again, like I really think Zelda, the treatment of Zelda as a competent warrior princess, like it's the most progressive thing the show does.
Yeah.
Where she's not just
A
what's
damsel
between
in
her
distress.
legs. Yeah. So they're in the woods. They're chasing Ganon. Link gives Zelda the magic bow that he got from the Moblins at the beginning of the episode. And again, as you go through Zelda, the video game series, if Zelda uses a weapon, it's usually a bow.
Yeah.
I think they started that with Wind Waker.
Yeah.
But then, like, in Ocarina of Time, she gives Link the light arrows. In Wind Waker, she shoots the light arrows. And it's that started with this show.
Yeah. Hyrule Warriors, which is the latest, most playable version of Zelda as a character. She is a bow wielder. Big
Cool.
time.
I have not played that yet. Is it good?
I burned 60 or so hours on it. It's interesting that it is a very canonical prequel to Breath of the Wild, but like the I don't know, like the gameplay of it is.
It looks like a Dynasty
redundant.
Warriors kind of game.
Yeah, it's 100%. It is that. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like that developers. Style. Like they don't really. What's the word I'm looking for? They don't really evolve that model very much from game to game. So it's like once you've played it for a couple hours, the actual gameplay is like, okay. But I stuck around for like. This is kind of cool to get the prequel story of what happened 100 years ago.
Yeah, that's the main reason I want to play it. I will play that.
Anyway, that was a bit of a derailment, but back to the action of this episode.
Yeah, dude. So, surrounded by Stalfos, which are the skeleton warriors. Link, what would you do in this situation? You're surrounded by all these enemies, and you got your best buddy with you.
100%.
What are you gonna do?
What do I do? I'm gonna wrap a belt around the two of us to make sure we're stuck together.
Yeah, dude. Obviously, that's just tactics.
Yeah,
strategy. So they belt themselves together back to back to fight off this horde of bad guys. And Zelda, she's a competent fighter. She's holding her own. She's kicking dudes. She's shooting laser arrows at them, and she's anything but a damsel in distress.
Yeah.
The only thing she's really distressed about is like the problematic behavior of her partner.
Yeah. Which again, she holds her own.
For sure, she does. She checks him at every time. And, although she should be like, you gotta stop with this behavior, Link. Like, they just need to have a really like sincere talk. 'Cause there seems to be a lot of like jovial. Like, links will be links.
Yeah.
There's some fighting, some action, and Zelda shoots Ganon with the magical bolt from the bow. His robes, they get set on fire, and he didn't get the memo about.
No, he just dabs at
stop,
him.
drop, and roll. He just kind of he's like no. And he grabs the Triforce, and he escapes to the secret entrance to his underground cave. But Link, he just throws a bomb into the entrance. And in reality, like, if you're trying to save something, the last thing you want to do is throw a bomb at it.
Yeah.
Because, like, this begs the question, is the Triforce, like, is it, like, made of, like, impermeable metal, or is it like just like crystal magic, or what is it? Like, what's it made of? Like, is it like the One Ring? Can it be destroyed by mortal hands, or does it need to be just whatever? He throws a bomb and it perfectly flies out. Cartoon logic.
Yeah.
You throw the bomb in, it hurts the bad guys, but it saves the artifact. That's the last thing you want. And so now that they've bombed Ganon's bunker, Link, he demands a kiss from Zelda, and
as one does.
She's lined up. She's up to bat. But then Sprite intervenes at the last moment, unties their belt. They fall apart because Zelda's like, Link, like, you gotta untie me. And he's like, maybe, babe. And then they like close, their eyes close. Fucking Sprite just.
Excuse me, Mr. J.
Yeah.
And then we go to the underground cave. Ganon. He's with his fallen minions, and they're floating around listlessly in the giant jar orb.
Yeah.
And he vows revenge.
Very much that scene you've always got to have of like, by the way, kids, we've hit the reset button and we'll be back next week.
I'll get you, Captain Planet!
Exactly.
And that's episode 1 of The Legend of Zelda: The Ringer. And you had to explain the title to me because I just don't. It's a bad title.
Well, yeah, I will reinforce it. I don't think it was a great choice. I mean, the entire design and plot of the episode is a little bizarre. It hits a lot of beats really fast. Like, you have like Act 1, Link gets attacked. And I guess that sends this signal to the big bad Ganon to, okay, that wasn't enough. For some reason, I need to infiltrate under stealth. Act 2, oh, there's a magician contest?
Absolutely.
Which is
amateur magician.
Yeah, amateur magician. Which is, that like part is very flimsy. It's the fact that like there's 2 peak like arcs of like that of combat. Actually, I mean 3. Every act has like a combat peak and fall to like, let's try to get. It's just a lot packed into what, 12 minutes.
I think the total runtime was around 16 minutes.
Okay. So it is a lot to digest, but as we've said here, it's like, for guys who were just given a game Bible, never played the game, and said, let's figure it out. There's a lot of like narrative communication of all these dynamics, and it's honestly probably was to their advantage to be like, let's just ape this thing that's already on TV to set up these character relations, and then it's like, boom, we've got it set for episode 1. We could do this 1,000 more times if we need to.
Yeah, I mean, the general format for the show seems to be Link and Zelda protect the Triforce from Ganon, who tries to steal it.
Yeah.
And then as the show goes on, Link and Zelda will try to steal Ganon's Triforce as well. So it's not just them playing defense. There's going to be some offense as well. But as we all know, the best offense is a good tomato spell.
That's right. Always and forever. I don't know how we wrap here, because, well, we were talking about doing 2 episodes, but we really this one.
This is a big, good one. So we're probably just going to sit on this.
Yeah.
Well, that does it for episode 1 of Camp Video Games. Campers, be sure to listen every time we do this. Is that good?
Or else. I don't know.
Thanks for listening, y'all.
Yeah, I'm just going to enjoy sitting by the fire and just taking that all in.
Oh, hold on. I'm going to take some marshmallows out.
I'm going to take some mescaline.
Do you want a juice box?
If you'd like to write to us, send a message to campvideogames@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram @campvideogames. If you want to become a real happy camper, you can support Camp Video Games on Patreon. For $5 a month, you'll be granted access to even more discussions about movie-based video games, game-based movies, full-length commentaries, playthroughs, and more. Whether you sign up or not, we're glad to have you here at Camp Video Games.